As a way of centering us this time, I want to share with you Isaiah 12. Oftentimes we think of the Psalms as only being in the book of Psalms, but there are Psalms that are other places that appear, such as in this case in Isaiah. And so it is, it's a title, a hymn of trust. You will say on that day, I thank you, Lord. Though you were angry with me, your anger turned away and you comforted me. God is indeed my salvation. I will trust and won't be afraid. Yeah, the Lord is my strength and my shield. He has become my salvation. You will draw water with joy from the springs of salvation. And you will say on that day, thank the Lord, call on God's name. Proclaim God's deeds among the peoples. Declare that God's name is exalted. Sing to the Lord, who has done glorious things. Proclaim this throughout all of the earth. Shout and sing for joy, city of Zion, because the Holy One of Israel is great among you. Amen. Hello, I want to welcome you to Hobson UMC on YouTube. I am VH Sonny Dixon Jr. I am the pastor here at Hobson, and I want to welcome you to my weekly conversation with my son Trey. It is an opportunity for him to help me to transition from a time of preparation and study and meditation on the scriptures for this coming week. After what's been going on this week, probably the medication is probably more important than the meditation. But we're just thankful that you have tuned in and to spend some time with us as we kind of talk and sort through some things. It is, as I say, it's a time for us to catch up with one another, but it's also a time for me to kind of put what I've been reading and what I've been thinking about, to put it in some kind of context as I try to get ready for the congregation for this coming week, because I want to make sure that the word that I have and the time we spend together is relevant to what is going on in the lives of the congregation. And so this affords me the opportunity. It's something we started a couple of years ago when we were in the midst of our shutdown, but it is something that we've continued because I've found that it has been an important time for me. And it also gives me an opportunity to be able to connect with you more than likely. I wouldn't be in contact with you this week and this weekend if you were not tuning in and listening to this on YouTube. And so that's an important for us, and it's always it means a great deal when I hear from you and you let me know that there was something that we said that caused you to look at the scripture maybe in a different way than you looked at it before, something that we said that brought you some comfort. So this is while it is for us, it is also a way for us to be able to be in a community with you. And I do encourage you, if there are things that you want us to talk about, topics that you want to hear about, please let us know, because this is not just for us, it is for you also. And we want to make sure that as we're coming up with a relevant message for Sunday, that our time and that the time you spend is relevant for you also. So thank you for tuning in. Always an important time whenever we gather at Hobson is to spend some time in sharing with one another those things that are upon our hearts that cause us some concerns, and those things of which we have joys, and we want to give God thanks for what God is doing in our midst and in the life of the congregation. So we spend time whenever we gather, whether it is in worship or whether it is in small groups, and sharing with one another those things that are upon our hearts. We do so because while we know that God already is aware of what it is that we're lifting up, We do it from a standpoint of a community because we want to also say to God that we want to be used in the ways that God sees fit to use us to be answers or to the prayers that we lift up, to be the presence for God in the community. So prayers are important for us, especially important to us in our prayer life is sharing with one another our birthday shout outs. That has become a big part of our time, and has also become a big part of our time on here on YouTube. I have people who let me know that they listen to hear their names called. I put some of them on the spot and asked them a little later on about the message that we talked about to see if they listened past hearing their names, and because there are some people that know that I'll do that, they'll at least go and catch some of the other parts. So, but we're thankful for you listening in and for the birthdays. And this week, everybody that's on our birthday list is special. But we start out this time with birthday greetings to a dear friend, Dorothy Davis. Bishop Kenneth Carter, his birthday is this week, and always just enjoy reading and hearing from him, and a relationship that started, some 20-something, 30-something years ago is one that I continue to value. Another one is Dr. Alice Hunt down in Alabama now, but want to wish her a happy birthday, send her birthday shout out. Cindy Burns, my most favorite turnip green chitlin picker. I miss Cindy doing those things for me. So, but we're sending a happy birthday out to her. And then also on the list we have Chris Blacksmith, Robin Perkins, Don Majors, Reverend B.J. Brack, have a couple cousins here, Jamon Bass, and then Jeffrey C. Leonard, Brandon Powell, Jocelyn Johnson, Camille Brown, Michael Tribute Jr., Dr. Kim Smiley, Teresa Comer, Van Everett, my metropolitan song man, Jared Clemens Mitchell, Melissa Richardson Bryant, William Head, Rachel Hill, Joseph Hines, Bob Teague, Mary Nallner, Council Lady Tanika Virtue, Robert Simmons, Wendy Forrester, Anika Sanders Jackson, Theodosia Kennedy, Matthew Kelly, Reverend Matthew Kelly, Timothy Ayers, Carlton Wilkinson, and Councilman Brandon Taylor, and Pearlie Murray Dunn. Want to wish all of them send them a birthday shout out. If you know them, be sure to send them greetings this week. We have just finished up. For some places, we have finished up with elections, and for some places, the count still continues as we're recording this. And for the state of Georgia, there will be an election that will be in a runoff, and it will continue. So we will pray for those that are elected, pray for those communities, and for all of us that we might use this as an opportunity to talk about some bigger issues. We may talk a little bit more about that a little later on as we move into that. But we just ask that you be in prayer for all of those elected, and pray for all of those who ran, and for the integrity of the process. And as we're talking about the election for that, there was an election within the United Methodist Church in the jurisdictions. There were bishops that were elected. And we're sending well wishes in the 5 jurisdictions for bishops that were elected, and we're praying for them and then praying for healing, because certainly in the process there is healing that needs to take place. Want to encourage you. This is. It appears that this is going to be a very a difficult flu season. So I want to encourage you and to be in prayer for you to go out and to get your flu shots and to, if you have not received your COVID booster, to be able to go and do that also. And particularly to be mindful, because it seems that it's going to be very difficult for children. It's both on the extremes, both the very young and the very old. It appears that it's being very rough on them this year. And then lastly, I want to ask for prayers for Bruce Hawkins, who is having some issues, and just want to be in prayer for Bruce in this congregation, and then just for all who are just going through some things. We just want to lift them up. If you have prayers that you want me to be in prayer for, please do not hesitate in letting me know, and you can send it to me via Facebook or a text message or email me, because we do believe in the power of prayer. And as I say that, then I also want to remember I forgot a birthday that I needed to lift up, and that is the birthday for Pauline Spells, whose birthday is this weekend. Wasn't supposed to say anything beforehand because they're having a surprise birthday party, but by the time that this airs, the birthday party would have already happened, and so I don't need to worry about it. So, as I say, if you have prayers that you want us to be sure to send them to us. Amen. Our reading for this week comes from Luke's Gospel, the 21st chapter. I'll be sharing with you verses 5 through 19, and I'll be using the Common English Bible translation. Some people were talking about the temple, how it was decorated with beautiful stones and ornaments dedicated to God. Jesus says, "As for the things you are admiring, the time is coming when not even one stone will be left upon another. All will be demolished." And they asked him, "Teacher, when will these things happen? What signs will show that these things are about to happen?" And Jesus said, "Watch out that you aren't deceived. Many will come in my name saying, 'I'm the one,' and it's time. Don't follow them. And when you hear of wars and rebellions, don't be alarmed. These things must happen first, but the end won't happen immediately." Then Jesus said to them, "Nations and kingdoms will fight against each other. There will be great earthquakes and wide-scale food shortage and epidemics. There will also be terrifying sights and great signs in the sky. But before all of this occurs, they will take you into custody and harass you because of your faith. They will hand you over to the synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. This will provide you with an opportunity to testify. Make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance. I'll give you words and wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to counter or contradict. You will be betrayed by your parents, brothers and sisters, relatives, and friends. They will execute some of you. Everyone will hate you because of my name. Still, not a hair on your head will be lost. By holding fast, you will gain your lives." And this is the word of God for the people of God, and we say thanks be to God. Well, Trey, we are just about at the end of the liturgical year. We've got this Sunday and the next Sunday, which is the reign of Christ, Christ the King Sunday, and we will then enter into a new one. So we're kind of finishing up. And it's always kind of when I get to the end of the year and the passages is just kind of seem to be there. It's just a lot that's going on in the world. I mean, we're transitioning from the holidays, people getting ready for Thanksgiving. This stuff that's just going on, and so the passages for these couple of Sundays are always a very challenging for me, and there have been times that I've ventured off into doing something else because I think people have just kind of gotten an overload on the passages. But this year, in particular, and I guess it's just where I am and in my own journey and what's going on in the world around me, that it has called me to kind of look at the passages. And as one of the things I do is I go back and see what I've done with them in the past, and kind of reflect on that from the standpoint. And I was going back, and I noticed on this particular Sunday, the passage from Thessalonians is one that I've gone to, and in fact, I was remembering one of them. It did kind of stand out because it was one of the passages I was kind of trying to use to get people more involved in the work and the ministry of the church, and that one didn't go over. That one didn't go over so well. So I was really kind of looking at this Luke passage and wondering, because there's a whole lot in this passage, and it is one that, as I say, I've kind of steered away from because it's talking about the end time, and and that's a kind of a scary thing. I mean, everybody, every time, every age always has events that happen in our lives that we think are telling. I can, in particular with this passage, I remember going back to 1999, and when we were looking and wondering when the clocks and the calendars and everything were going to go over to the 2000, whether the computers were going to shut down, whether the time was not going to be able to calculate because we had been using all of the different dates, and everybody was talking about boy, I'm going to go out and borrow a lot of money because it's not going to be registered and all of that. And so it has, as I can say, it has not been one of my favorite passages from that standpoint. But as I was looking at it this week, it also kind of reminded me, not only is this not one of my favorite passages to preach from, but it also kind of reminded me of, I guess, a character trait that I have that goes back to even goes back to when I was a child. And I can't ever remember a time that I could actually say that I was a person who liked to go sightseeing. When I was a kid, of course, we would go on the family vacations, and we would go to various places, in particular going to places up north and being, taken to the places that you're supposed to go and see. You're supposed to go to, Washington and see certain things, and you go to New York and you see, and whatever. I remember going to to seeing the Niagara Falls. We went. But those trips and those events, for some reason, just never kind of resonated with me. I mean, I did it because, that's what we did as a family, but I tend to enjoy more the staying in the hotel and being able to order room service and eating in the bed and doing all of those kind of things, as opposed to looking at the Washington Monument or the Lincoln Monument and just kind of standing there and all. That was just not something I did. And then as I got to be, an adult and most of my traveling was not to go and see stuff. I mean, occasionally we would go and see things, but I generally most of mine went around going to events, and particularly going to sport events. I do remember, and I guess Trey, I don't know how you were, because I can't even remember the year, but do you remember going, taking you down to Memphis to see Ramsey? Yeah, we went down, and I mean, there was
like eight or nine.
Yeah, 8 or 9, something like that. I mean, those were the kind of things, say, oh, you got to go, and you got to go see the King Tut, and, and go in to see, and, and I can remember going, but I don't ever seem to think that I was ever as fascinated by the things that other people were saying, and I don't know whether that was a flaw in who I was. But I was thinking about that as I was reading this passage, because most of the time, where we are in this story, this is Jesus is in Jerusalem. And we know that within 48 hours he's going to be executed. And, for me, when I'm thinking about him entering into Jerusalem, I'm thinking about the pending execution and the crucifixion of Jesus. I'm kind of centering on that. And I'm kind of thinking, in my own mindset that, that he's got, these people who have been with him for 3 years, and he's spending time with them. And he's trying to get things together. He's doing the last little bit of teaching and addressing. And for me, much of my attention has been on the confrontation that has taken place with him and the religious leaders. We kind of did that last week. But as I was reading the passage and I was thinking about, my own experiences, that as I looked at the story this time, I thought that there were probably in the entourage of people who had come in, a few days before, and in the triumphant entry and going into Jerusalem, that there were probably a lot of people who were in that group for whom this was the first time that maybe they had ever been to Jerusalem. In particular, when we read this story, it appears in all of the synoptic gospels, but in Luke's gospel, where we have had a journey that it is certainly one that is a much more inclusive and a diverse group of people than we normally think about. I mean, we normally think about just the 12 and the other kind of intimate extension of that 12 that may have been with them, but Luke invites us, and I think this passage invites us to think that there were probably some people of whom had not been there before, that they were not like Jesus and had not spent the majority of their lives in going and traveling to Jerusalem for the special events, that this was their first time. And I kind of get that sense that as they're there, for Jesus, this is a heavy encounter that's getting ready to happen. But for them, they were walking around and they were marveling at the temple. And for them, even though Jesus was talking about some other things and other activities were going on, there were challenges that were going on with religious and they were just caught up in the grandeur of the temple. And just marveling at the experience and seeing that. And I can, for me, while that's not my thing, I can see how that has been. And for them to think that now We have been invited, and we have an entree into this inclusiveness, that this is a part of who we are. This is a place that we will be able to come and to be able to celebrate. This is what it means to be a child of God, and to be able to come to this place. This is my Father's house, and I can see how they were caught up in that. And as they were walking around with their mouths wide open, and ooh and ahhing, and going through, and getting out their iPhones, and taking their pictures, and sending them, and texting them to the folk back down at home, and letting them know, hey boy, look at this, that while they were doing that, that Jesus comes in, and Jesus then kind of says, look, this is not gonna last. And I think, for us, and for them, and for us, I mean, we always know that in the midst of the good things, there's always those who come and say, it's not going to last, that the end time is coming. As I said, earlier, about talking about, going back to, 2000. I mean, everybody was predicting, and we always are hearing of people who have somehow, have predicted that the end time was coming. And so, they're kind of caught up, and they're kind of wondering, maybe this thing is too good to be true, and maybe the end is coming. Surely, this man has said a whole lot of stuff that's made a whole lot of sense to us, and so we're going to trust him on that. And as with any case, that whenever people start talking about the end time, and the fact that the end time is coming, they wanted to know, just tell us. When will it happen? What will we do? And of course, in this passage that Jesus goes through and talks about some things, and there are things that I think that resonated with them and continue to resonate with us from time to time. I can't help but think that there are those of whom Jesus warns them that there will be people who will come in my name and say that they know when the end time, and they will be able to predict. And we certainly have seen that and heard that recently, as a lot of people have talked about, when certain things are not going their way, or certain agendas that they have are being opposed, and that marks the end time that is coming. And as Jesus says in this, the wars that are taking place within our communities, and that when we talk about the natural disasters, and we go back and see what happened in Florida and other places in recent, and when we think about the issues of climate change and all of that, then it certainly leads the way for people to say, the end time is coming. And of course, I'm not going that way, and I'm not going to share that. But the thing that stood out to me in this reading, and I think where I'm going with it on this Sunday, is that that as he's talking to them and saying that in the midst of all of these things that are happening, he says to them that this will provide you with an opportunity to testify. Yes, we are living in some very difficult and some very challenging times, but for many of us, and for most of us that will be listening to this, I mean, we've gone through some times that have been equally as hard, equally as disappointing. When I see the things that are going on, and we're looking at election, and people are pitching, doom and gloom, and this is the end time. We have made it through it, and as challenging and as disappointing as I have seen, for some of the people who are, who elections that have taken place, and people have said, boy, no, look at where we're headed. And I mean, not only elections that, within in our government, we just came out of elections within the United Methodist Church, and offered up prayers for that. But there are a lot of people that came out of that with some hurt feelings and say, boy, we're going in the wrong direction. There are people who are looking at disaffiliation and going through and the split and all of that. That is nothing that is new. Those kinds of decisions, there have always been people of whom have brought in and brought the wrong agendas to the discussion, and personal agendas that we have had wars and rumors of wars within and without the church. And so, but in the midst of it, there have still been people, and there are people of whom have remained faithful in their witness to what God, and they're faithful in their relationship, because that's ultimately what Jesus is talking about in that regardless of what happens, your testimony and how it is in your relationship has got to be the thing that you hold for. If you're holding on to these fancy, churches and buildings and positions, then all that stuff is going to crumble. But the relationship and the love that you have and the love that you express through God is what's matter in that. And if there is an area that I think that we as the church have got to improve upon in this day and time, and that we've got to be more diligent in, is that we've got to see this as this time that is very divisive with us, and that we've got all kind of people who oppose. It goes on, he says, we got mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and relatives and everybody that are one another against one another. That we need to be and need to hold firm that the things that we believe in the name of Jesus Christ, that we lift up, and that is who we are grounded in, and that is the relationship that we have. And I am afraid that we're not doing enough of that. And so on this Sunday, I'm going to challenge us as a congregation for us that in the midst of what appears to be some very difficult and challenging time, that for us it is an excellent opportunity for us to testify to our own relationship and to what Jesus means to us. Amen. Well, Trey, how things going with you?
Things are going pretty good. How are they going with you?
Oh, going pretty good. I guess we're in a down period now. The election is over with, and so hopefully we won't have as many commercials and advertisement we had, and we can get back to watching sports. And so, but it is still. I noticed last night. Was watching some of the returns and listening to the people, and so that's the season we're in. But I'm doing fine. I kind of like listening to some of that, and kind of got tired of it after a while and turned on and watched King Kong. So that was my night. I didn't even watch any sports last night. So.
Yeah, it really wasn't nothing on to watch.
Yeah, and. Yeah, because all of the stations were dedicated, and then this morning, once again, everybody was doing all the talking. So I'm trying to find something that I can always count on Mason and turning on Paw Patrol. So that's we watched Paw Patrol this morning. So. One of the things, and I guess this goes back to my reading and just doing some time in my own, doing some reminiscing and thinking about, stuff. And I guess so the question is, what is it that that you like to do, that you hope that you will be able to pass down, and that Mason will like to do, and that hopefully, you will feel like, okay, he and I can bond over those activities. I was just sharing one thing. What my father, and we were not, and the times were such that you didn't go out to eat a lot.
Right,
there
right.
weren't a lot of places as a child, that we could go, to what we would say we were going out to eat. But occasionally there was a steakhouse called Chambers that was on like 21st Avenue South, and every now and then, it might have been, I don't, what was the occasion. Maybe I had done something, or maybe he was just in one of those moods. But he would just, he would say, go put on some clothes. We're gonna go eat, And it was like, wasn't taking mama, wasn't taking, sister. It was just he and I, and we were going, and it was like, okay, well, no, you get to have a steak tonight, and I was like, and that was such a, that was such a special time, and going out and saying, okay, here's where, and I think my eventual love for steak came, out of that experience,
Right,
and
right.
I didn't even want to eat steak at home. Only place I wanted to eat steak was, to go out to, the Chambers. And even when we went on vacation, it wasn't the same, because, it was going to be, mama and my sister, or somebody else, was long. But that was always, something. And I, if he probably would have lived longer, that probably would have been, our time, our kind of connecting time,
Sure.
And early as a child, baseball was his thing, And I knew all the baseball players and followed the Giants because that was his team, And so, are there things that you like to do that you
Sure.
hope that, Mason, whether it's foods or whether it's doing,
Yeah. Sports for sure.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of how I look at basketball. Kind of in the same vein you looked at going to steaks with your dad and whatever. It's like basketball is synonymous with our relationship.
Yeah.
Because I can remember times where we would go to different places, or I would leave school early or not go to school, and it would be around going somewhere to watch basketball, or even around my birthday and having, the Civitan tournament and being kind of surrounded by your friends during that time, and seeing, I guess, the enjoyment you had with your friends in basketball are just kind of developed in that way. But, I'm a big Philadelphia Eagles fan, and hopefully some of that can rub off on them, and we can enjoy the Eagles together for as long as I'm around. And, of course, the photography. I don't know, if he'll pick that up, but, just to be able to, get him a camera and allow him to go around and snap some pictures and, just be artistic in that way.
Well, things are changing. So, because when I, I think about, when I used to do, photography and, learning how to, process film and doing all that kind of stuff, to take, take 30 or 40 pictures, that was a big deal, And now with these digital cameras, look, I got 20,000. You go through and pick out. I mean, it'd be some boy you have. I remember one time I had a smudge on a lens. And of course, I'm looking through the lens, so you're not really looking through the lens. You're looking through the thing, and I got all of the pictures back, and they were all out of focus and all, And
Right.
oh man, I spent $4 for that roll.
$4.
And so hopefully as it evolved, and I am, I'm sure that there are things. I mean, of course you got exposed to some stuff, and there's always that, thing between, parents, what parents wanted you to do, because, oh boy, got to take the boy to tap dance, So.
Well, you know what? You know what? To think back on all of that and those experiences, I don't remember saying I want to tap dance.
Right.
I think that was because that's what Sonya was doing, and so I wanted to be in that realm of what she was able to do well, and just to say, some of my friends were doing it, so might as well.
Right.
But to think about, that saying, okay, well, I'm gonna let Mason tap dance, or I'm gonna take him to dance lessons. That probably won't be something that I initiate. Now, if he wants to say, I want to tap dance, then so be it. We'll tap dance. But that wasn't something that I can remember saying, yeah, I want to do that. That seems pretty cool.
No, I think that was kind of a thing, you in the car, you can't stay at home by yourself. You 6 years old, and got to take Sonya. So you go and get into class too.
You gonna tap dance. You gonna do something.
You gonna do something. You're just not gonna sit up here and talk about you want to go get some chicken tenders. You go in there and do some other thing. Because being at that point, being the only boy, with all of the girls that were, being carpooled together, it was kind of like, oh, okay, and you were all right at it, so you.
I mean, I had, I guess, a sense of skill at it. It wasn't something that, as I got older, that was not important at all. I think I'm a okay dancer, right? I have rhythm. Right. I'm able to listen to a song or some music, and I'm able to stay on beat, and I got a little move here and a move there. But, to say I'm going to put on some tap shoes and tap something out, no, I don't have that skill anymore. Right. But, yeah.
But, I was just kind of looking, and... we, let's say I didn't get into sightseeing, and so, I think, we may have gone to some zoos and some amusement parks to do some things, but I was more of a person that kind of, did some things, and so I just wondered, and sometimes there are movies and entertainment, so it was. We will see. So, and I just say I brought it up because, for Jesus it was a very heavy moment. He knew what was going through, and for them, it was like, wow, boy, it's great for us to be here. And then I think later, as they look back at that moment. And I think that sometimes, we do not hold on to the moments because we are caught up in the moment that we don't realize and see it from a bigger picture. So just wanted to, just kind of hear your reflections on that. So,
okay.
All right. I want to thank you for tuning in and spending some time with us and praying that in this season, as we are transitioning in our liturgical year and as we're getting ready for Thanksgiving and the holidays and the festivities around that, I want to pray that you just take care of yourself. Be sure to check on your neighbors, check on those that you're in the community with. A lot, as I say, lots going on, and there are a lot of people who we find that are forgotten. And so I want to encourage you to reach out. That's what it means to be in community. And so thank you for reaching out and spending some time with us. And keep us in prayer, and we'll keep you in